Hey everyone, welcome back to our channel. Today, we've got some incredible stories lined up for you that you won't want to miss. So sit back, relax, and get ready for some captivating stories. Let's dive in. Story 1. My husband 28F, 29M and I are in a chicken breeding club, which provides an allotment garden-like structure. We joined a year ago and got to know Klaus, an old man who actually lives in one of those said gardens. At first, he was very kind, helping out once or twice. But after a while, he got very greedy, telling us to help him in his garden, sell items for him on eBay, or care for his chickens. Some people said we should keep our distance from him, but we didn't listen. He regularly invited us to drink beer with him, acted like he knew everyone in town, was well known, and had many connections. But the real thing was, yes, he was known, but for all the wrong reasons. We talked to him a lot in the first few months and noticed he's highly addicted to alcohol and tries to make a dime out of everyone and everything. You know the saying, blood is thicker than water. Not for him. At first, he helped us out by giving us some tools for free or giving us money for working at his place. We felt bad for him living your last days in a garden shed. But after a while, he gave us almost nothing for our work. No money, broken tools, so garbage we had to dispose of. Not even a thank you. He also started to talk to us in a very demanding tone, old male Karen-like. Instead of confronting him, we started to distance ourselves from him and stop doing any more work. His last effort to win us back was to buy 20 marijuana plants and put them in his garden to show us he knew we smoked. But as soon as he demanded we sell his future 5 kilos, we backed off again. As others noticed we didn't hang out with him anymore, they started to tell us how Klaus truly was. He started to live there as soon as another club member, now deceased, lost his home and lived on his farm over there as per the rules of the club. It's not allowed. If he was allowed to, Klaus had to be too. Klaus lived there for 14 years, not because he became homeless or faced another stroke of bad luck in life, but because he wanted to live as inexpensively as possible. We learned he had loads of debt, no wonder considering how much he drank. We found out this has been the case since he was old enough to drink. He tried to rip everyone off for their money since. Ever. His brother, his best friend, even his wife. Some say, if she was still alive, he would sell his own mother. As the weeks went by, we learned more and more about him and that he had done this with nearly everyone who joined the club, not only with us. We saw it too, as a new member, who's also mentally disabled, cut his hedge for him for 16 hours and got $20. And no thank you. Klaus started to dislike the way we stayed out of his way. So his response was to talk badly about us, even threatening us to tell others that we smoked illegal over here. I mean, real full-fledged lies. For example, we would owe him $200. We would have parties till late at night at the farm. We would hit our dogs. At that last point, we snapped. We bought a drone, took pictures of his marijuana plants, and got the police involved. Get them before they get you. Klaus peacefully sat in the club's community house, drinking beer 9 o'clock in the morning, as 10 police officers walked in, going directly into his garden. Little Klaus turned his head around like an owl and immediately stood up and walked outside. He asked one cop, "Hi, can I help you?" And they asked for his name. "Oh, Mr. Klaus, we were actually looking for you." Behind the officer talking to him, the other cops raided his farm, not only finding the plants, but also discovering he lives their living room with an obviously used bed, food leftovers, a TV. They asked him for his address, and he told them the address of his long-deceased brother. They sent a car to this address, but found no clue he could be living there. By the way, he also got money from the state, social benefits meant to cover his rent. The rent on this farm is $30 per year. So huge, no, money fraud is one of the worst things you could do over here. The cops stayed at his farm for the next 4 hours, collecting evidence. The whole farm surroundings were patrolled by some cops, so word spread like wildfire. Every single farm owner came over to see what was happening, cheering that this jerk finally got what was coming for him after ripping off so many people. It was amazing. This dude had 14 years to make this farm his little hidey hole, making money out of it. He had split the whole community, gave us a bad name overall, and not even bred chickens. He just had them to sell the eggs, SMH. To his luck, he was clever enough to tell the cops it's only CBD still illegal. But not as much, so they had to send it in to test it, buying him some time. The club held a meeting. That was a crazy show. As soon as this topic started, he said we planted them there. He only gave us a little plot. Most laughed, some said nothing. We voted for his eviction had to. As per the rules, he got 15 against him. Story 2. After reading posts here about entitled parents who try to steal Nintendo Switches for their horrible children, it unlocked a memory of when I was 8 years old and I got my first Nintendo Gameboy as a present from my godfather for getting good grades and making honor roll every time. My parents bought a few games for it and a carry case with a few accessories. My mom and dad confirmed it, and my eldest sister would too. Now on to the story. We were at the mall at a local restaurant named after the day that comes after Monday during the summer of 1989. My parents were having dinner with business associates. My sisters and I had things to occupy ourselves with while the grown-ups talked. I had my Game Boy and was enjoying Super Mario Land. I had to sit on the outside of the table in case I needed to use the bathroom. As I was playing my Game Boy, I felt eyes on me. I've always hated having people looking over my shoulder at what I'm doing or playing. Lo and behold, a troublesome child was behind me. "Are you lost?" my mom asked him. I turned to see him, and then he shouted, "I want to play now." The restaurant customers looked at him, and I said, "No, you can't because I just got it." He then screamed for his mom, and in came Karen, who basically didn't like being disturbed. She snapped at me to give her son my Game Boy. I said no, and she rolled her eyes and made a grab for my Game Boy, muttering under her breath. My mom got up and into her face. "What do you think you're doing?" "Your evil child stole my son's toy. I'm just taking it back." The thing is, my mom wasn't having it and went into Mama Bear mode. I don't remember what happened, but I'm pretty sure my mom was going to kick her butt. Karen and her child left, but not defeated. I went to the bathroom, and the troublesome child snuck over and tried to take my game case. But my dad's business associate saw him and called him out. The child screamed and ran off. He tried again while we were eating, but my mom saw him, and he ran off. My mom had me switch seats with my oldest sister, and I was sitting by the window that opened into the mall. The child snuck over again, but saw I wasn't sitting there and walked away. There were no more incidents until after the meal. I pulled my Game Boy bag over my shoulder. As my parents were finishing up and waiting for the bill, I was grabbed and pulled through the window by Karen. She screamed at me and began to hit me, grabbing my Game Boy case, all while the child was screaming for mommy to punish me. She pulled too hard, and the strap broke, and my Game Boy case went flying into the fountain. That was when Karen went red. For about 5 seconds until my dad decked her in the face, and my mom comforted me as I was crying. From what mom told me, she went nuclear red after seeing my face. It had bruises, and one of my baby teeth was missing. Both of my parents were livid. Karen got up and lunged at me again, and my mom backhanded her with all her strength and fury. She knocked her out cold. Security was called to the scene, and the dad of the child was called. This happened after Karen told the infamous, "He stole my son's game case," etc., etc. But then her husband spoke up. What game case? She knew she was in trouble. The security camera caught everything, and yes, my parents pressed charges, and she was arrested. In typical Karen fashion, she tried to take my parents to court, but there was so much evidence against her. For more fun, my eldest sister had slapped the child because he was screaming for his mom to literally hurt me, which made him stop and look fearful at my sister. My dad's business friends fished out my Game Boy case, and everything was ruined. I was heartbroken because this Karen ruined the present I had gotten from my godfather. So my dad took me to Toys R Us the next day and bought me a new Game Boy and accessories, letting me pick out the games to replace the others. He also bought me a better carry case. They told my godfather what happened when we visited, and he was furious and wanted to confront Karen for slapping me. Then everyone in my family found out and wanted to confront Karen as well. Thankfully, I didn't need therapy because of my loving family and the support they gave me and the reassurance that they would defend me from anyone trying to hurt me. Story 3. Before I start, I want to point this out. This occurred at an inflatables place when I was a bit younger. I know this is already kind of long, but here's some background. Then, I was a kid with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. My family always went to celebrations and fun events at this one indoor inflatable place renamed Sky Pump for privacy reasons, where a lot of kids go to have fun. This was my first encounter with an entitled parent. Also, keep in mind that the entitled kid was not much younger than me. All right, without further ado, I was at Sky Pump in one of the indoor bounce houses for basketball with inflatable toy balls like those cheap soft ones, playing. I was just dunking a couple because the bouncy house hoops are so low. I was with a couple of random kids. My sister and the entitled kid had just entered. The kid didn't really do much until he started throwing the balls at kids' faces. Keep in mind that the kid is a boy. I was starting to get annoyed, and then he did the worst move possible. I wouldn't have cared if it was at me, but get this. In his little ball throwing spree, he hit my sister square on her nose. She started crying. She was little at the time, and the balls were filled to the max air pressure allowed, and man, was I upset. I then told him, in a slightly agitated tone, "Do not throw balls at people. You just hurt my sister." He began his exchange. "I can do what I want to. I don't care about your sister." "Dude, you gotta stop. Some of these kids are really little, and you hit my sister. Don't do that again, okay?" At this point, my sister had almost completely stopped crying. Then, he lit up with the most evil grin on his face. I saw him pick up another ball, and he pretended to aim at the hoop, but then he whipped around, and this kid had the audacity to do it again, this time hitting her jaw. She didn't cry this time, but she was straight up screaming like a banshee. I had had enough, and I told the kid, "Dude, what the heck?" He kept laughing and proceeded to throw 2 inflatable balls at my face. "All right, kid, do you want to get in trouble?" He then said something crazy. "I'm going to shoot you with my rifle." I was just silent and in shock at this point and quite disturbed. He proceeded to hit me and kick me, even biting me once, and I had enough. I shoved this kid away, and he just fell on his bottom. This is a bouncy house, keep in mind. Oh, this is about to get good. I left the bouncy house with my sister, and we told my mom what happened. My mom was a little annoyed that I pushed him, but glad that I helped my sister. However, she was upset. A boy hurt her daughter, and her son was almost welled up with tears, and she decided to tell this boy's mom what happened. We walked over to her and her boy, and as soon as the entitled mother saw my heroic mother, she let out the most Karen-like screech ever. She proceeded to hurl multiple slurs at my mother, and then went on to call me an obese R-word. I am a bit on the heavy side, but I've been trying to get healthier at the time, doing better now, and my mom was fuming at this. This is the conversation that followed. "Your son hurt my little angel." This kid literally fell on inflatable rubber with his bottom. My mom, "All right, do you want to see what your little angel did to my kids?" My sister and I proceeded to show our developing bruises and my bite mark. "Those aren't from my son. Those are from the bouncy castles because you can get hurt in them." Even I, who was young, knew that this was nonsense because how would a bouncy castle give you bite marks? My mom starts, "Yours." Entitled mother cuts her off. "I'm going to sue you all. Your son is ugly." "Listen here, I love my boy, and he is wonderful." Enter awesome passerby. What is going on here? I remember the entitled mother interrupting my mom and saying something about an idiot getting her son a fractured skull. The passerby to my mom, "Is this true?" My mom explained what happened, and he said he would go tell a staff member. Entitled mother, "She is a liar. She's just trying to look better than me." The awesome passerby then responded with some select words to the entitled mother before walking off. Entitled mother, "I hope you die. You R-word." More insults and threats flew until my mom finally snapped. "All right, back off before you are the injured one. I swear to God, I will thrash you senseless if you talk badly about anyone." She was silent. My sister and I were too, because our mom is extremely chill and it takes a lot to make her snap. The entitled mother then started yelling that my mom was harming her, and finally an employee showed up. She then ranted to the employee that my mom was going to kill her, and the employee didn't have any of it. The employee told them to leave, but they didn't. An officer had to end up coming to escort them out. And she was yelling about how she was going to sue my family and the company until she was finally out of the building and into the cop's car. Everyone saw and was quite shocked. We decided to leave and go out for ice cream. I also got checked for tetanus vaccinations, and I was up to date, luckily. Story 4. Several years ago, I worked as a receptionist at a healthcare facility. They were doing some renovations and had standing weekly meetings with the fire marshal. After the first meeting, the marshal asked me to type up some notes. After clearing it with my manager, I started transcribing until he came and stood uncomfortably close behind me. I asked him several times to stand on the other side of my desk, and he replied that he wanted to make sure I didn't make a typing mistake. I quickly finished the transcription and handed it back to him. As he was reviewing it, he casually asked me on a date. I politely said, "I'm sorry, I have to decline." The man was at least twice my age. The next day, I came into work to see a note on my chair from my boss. It basically stated that while I looked nice, someone complained that they could see down my shirt. I was wearing a knit sleeveless V-neck sweater with a blazer over it. It was not low-cut. The only way to see down my shirt was to stand directly over me, so I knew who complained and why. I explained this to my boss. The next week, I wore a knit turtleneck and blazer with black pants. The fire marshal came in, met with my boss, and again asked to transcribe the report. While I was transcribing, he came to stand behind me once again and started rubbing my shoulders. I immediately jumped out of my chair and took several steps away. I told him loudly, "I do not want you to touch me. If you cannot stand on the other side of my desk, then I will not transcribe your notes." He then asked me out again, and I told him no. I finished transcribing and then left my desk. The next day, I received another note, this time stating that I had acted unprofessionally, yelling at my desk and walking away when a guest needed my assistance. I again explained what happened to my manager and received no reaction. We got the inspection report back saying we failed. The third week, I wore a high-neck tunic and slacks, both being at least 3 sizes too big. When the marshal asked me to transcribe the notes, I simply said, "No, I have other work to do." Then he started badgering me about not going out with him, asking if I thought I was too good for him. I stated, "What part of no do you not understand? You are old enough to be my father, and I am not interested." The next day, another note stated I was purposely being rude to a guest. When I talked to my manager, I asked her when she was going to do her job and offer me some protection against this predator. Again, no response, but again, the inspection failed. The fourth week, when I saw the fire marshal coming, I simply left my desk and went on break. I didn't return until after he left. When I left work that day, the marshal was waiting by my car, so I caught a ride home with a coworker and came back later to pick up my car. You guessed it, I received another note complaining I had abandoned my post and another failed inspection. I didn't bother reporting it to my manager, but I did call her manager. Week 5, I'm at my desk when the marshal comes towards me. I immediately buzz my manager and her boss and leave the speaker open. The fire marshal started being aggressive, complaining how he waited for me after work and asking when I was going to go out with him. I said to him in as professional a manner as I could muster, "I do not appreciate you coming on to me. I am not interested in transcribing your reports. I am never going to go out with you, and I want you to stop stalking me." He then told me he was going to get my address and meet me at my house. At this point, my manager and her boss came out of the office. The fire marshal was escorted out, a call was placed to his boss, and he was never to come to our facility again. Later, I heard he was dismissed over the incidents. My boss was written up for failing in her duty to protect her staff from a predator, and she was transferred to a facility 100 miles away. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. If you enjoyed these stories, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more amazing content. We love hearing your thoughts, so drop a comment below and let us know which story was your favorite. And as always, stay tuned for more real-life stories next time. See you soon!